you see that lymphatic drainage from the breast, it is complicated, it is hard, but it shows for us huge important information several years after. Then you will study the oncology. We will come once again to this question, because we must understand all possible ways of the metastasis from the breast region, by the way, except the lymphogenous way. We have a hematogenous and we have contactogenous way of the metastasis, but the predominated one, it is the lymphogenous. More than 80% of the metastasis from the breast happen immediately by the lymphatic system, which I draw for you. Very well, we understand it. Now 1 minute attention. You know, till now we discussed only 3 layers of anterior thoracic wall. That is skin, fat, and superficial fascia. All the other structures which we mentioned, it is encapsulated inside of this superficial fascia and called the mammary gland. Now write please, layer number 4 for females and layer number 4 for males differ from each other. For the females, 4th layer in this region, it is retromammary loose connective tissue, which is located behind of the mammary gland, between mammary gland and major pectoral muscle. So once again, you have the breast and the major pectoral muscle. You see that between us we have the distance, and this distance is filled by loose connective tissue, which is called retromammary space. That's once again layer number 4 for females. By the way, it is greatly visible in this picture. Attract your attention into this empty space. It shows a gray, bluish color, yeah, which is called, for example, here, which is called the retromammary space. Now we need attention. If I am major pectoral, my coverage called the properficial. If she is breast, her coverage called the superficial fascia. So otherwise, we can say that this space is bordered not by breast and major pectoral, but by superficial fascia and properficial. The idea is understandable for you. And what is the physiological meaning of this space? Friends, it's more than simple. The space gives the movement for the breast. Because imagine that breast is firmly fused with the major pectoral, of course it will lose any movement, or the movement will be critically decreased. By the way, surgical space is important for implantations. You know, the silicone implants, we insert it inside of this space to give the form, but at the same time the breast loses the movement. It's time to be fixed. By the way, from plastical point of view, it's great, yeah, because fixation prevents descending of the breast to downwards, and it gives the form. But anyhow, remember please that spaces give the movement for the breast, and of course, the more space is developed, the more is movement, vice versa. The more space is occupied by, say, for example, implants, which we discussed before, the less will be the movement of the breast due to the pressure and due to the fixation. Approximately in 25–30% of cases, inside of this space, I mean retromammary space, we can see synovial bursa. You know, usually our synovial bursas located in joint regions, yeah? And they have one meaning: decrease the friction. Simple method we can use to check it, yeah? Then we move our hands, we feel the friction, they stand warm, and now imagine that between them there are some virtual ball. Of course, this virtual ball will decrease the friction. And in case of this virtual ball, inside of our body we have real ball-shaped structures, which is formed by synovial sheath, and small amount of the liquid, which is inside of it, closed spaces. By the way, bursa can be closed or communicated. Communicated bursas usually communicated with the cavity of the joints. Closed bursas doesn't have any communication. This is just a ball with small amount of the liquid. You can say Y amount is small because it is unproductive and absorbed. But if this equilibrium between production and absorption is destroyed, usually we have the inflammation, which is called bursitis. Not arthritis, bursitis. But you are somehow right, because if it will be communicated synovial bursite will become to arthritis, inflammation of the joint. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Very well. You can say me, but what is this lucky 30% or unlucky, I don't know, who have this synovial bursite? Genetically, persons with big breasts. Because we have, of course, not all big breasts is genetically determined. It can be plastically reconstructed breast. But if it is genetically determined, that kind of the persons have more possibility to have, again, genetically determined synovial bursite. Why? The more is breast, the more is friction. The more is friction, the more is possibility of the traumas. Let's say there are protectional mechanisms, which is genetically determined by the X chromosome. Is it understandable for you? Very well. What is the speed? What is the layer number 4 for the males? Immediately the proper fission. No breast, no space. So we have proper fission. By the way, mention it, write it please. That for females that is layer number 5. For males it's layer number 4. But for both genders it contains 2 layers. Proper fission split it into 2 layers. Superficial layer of proper fission, please guys, don't mix it with superficial fish. That is not superficial fish. That is superficial layer of the proper fish. We call it fascia pectoralis. In the brackets, right, it has great meaning. It is covered the major pectoral muscle, form the capsule, and it also gives 2 septa. I remind you anatomy, yeah, which is divided in major pectoral into 3 portions, from up to down: clavicular, sternocostal, and abdominal, according to the places of attachment: clavicular to the clavicle, sternocostal to the ribs, and abdominal fused with rectus muscle of the belly. So remember, please, 2 septas divided big major pectoral into 3 portions: clavicular, sternocostal, and abdominal. Very well. Same for males and females, absolutely no any difference. By the way, starting from that layer, all anatomy will be same. That's it. We have difference only in layer number 3 and layer number 4. 3 it is superficial fascia, 4 it is retromammary space. All another anatomical specificities, topographical is same. Let's continue. Next layer, it is the deep layer of the proper fascia. It has historically 2 names. It can be called fascia clavipectoralis. By the way, this name, clavipectoralis, show which structures it is covered. It is covered 2 structures, yeah? Subclavian muscle and the minor pectoral muscle. And for both these muscles, it forms the capsule. And second name, it is coracoclavicostalis. Now that name is show the places of its attachment. Coracoid process of the scapula, clavicles, and ribs up to the level of the 6. Let's remember, please, once again, a deep layer of the proper fascia we call clavipectoral fascia or coracoclavicostal fascia, which is covered 2 muscles and which is fused with the 3 mentioned bone. Is it understandable for you? Very well, but we need attention now for you. If you will be major pectoral, I will be minor pectoral, we also will have space between us for both genders. It is called subpectoral space. Let's write, please, between major and minor pectoral muscles. There are also loose connective tissue, which is called subpectoral space. Open the brackets and write, please, content of it: loose connective tissue, deep lymphatic nodes, thoracoacromial artery. You remember it is the branch of axillary artery. In the brackets, write, please, inside of this space, it is split into 3 terminal branches. Inside of this space, it is split into three terminal branches. Ramus acromialis, which is supplying the humeral joint. Ramus deltoideus, which is supplying deltoid muscle. And rami pectorales, double, for major and minor pectoral muscles. That's a thoracoacromial artery originated from axillary artery in the region of armpit. Then it is traversed into the thorax region, enter inside of subpectoral space, split it into three terminal branches, and made the great work here, yeah, by supplyment of the structures. And also, right, please, two nerves, pectoralis medialis lateralis, both it is short branches of the brachial plexus. Thank you very much. Both it is motor nerves, both together innervated major and minor pectoral muscles. Major and minor pectoral muscles. Now, right, please. Under minor pectoral muscle, we have all layers of the thorax, which is formed by three structural units. Number one, bony skeleton of the thorax. I think you understand. We have 12 vertebrae, sternum, and 12 pairs of the ribs. Yeah? Number two, intercostal muscles, which has the respirational function, external, internal. Transverse thoracic muscle also included inside of it, yeah? That's an inspirational muscles, Jerry. And group number three, it is endothoracic fascia. That is the deepest layer of deep fascia, which is cover all these mentioned structures from inside. Once again, when we say all layers of thorax, we imagine bony skeleton of the thorax, we imagine respirational muscles, and we imagine endothoracic fascia, which is being the coverage of the structures from inside. I think it is understandable. For you guys, 1 minute attention to me. By endothoracic fascia, our wall is finished, and our cavity is started. Endothoracic fascia, that is the fascia which is covered from all sides our mediastinum. That's why mediastinum is called fibrous cavity. Because fascia, it is the fibrous structure. Vice versa, our pleural cavities, right and left, covered from all the sides by parietal pleura, which is serous membrane. That's a pleural cavities we call serous cavities of the thorax. Conclusion, our thorax has double serous cavity and single fibrous cavity. By the way, inside of this single fibrous cavity, there are one more serous cavity, which is called pericardial serous cavity. You know, pericardial serous cavity contains double layers of the serous membrane. Parietal, which is covered the pericardium, and visceral, which is covered the heart, which is called epicardium. That's how remember, please, inside of the fibrous cavity, there are one more serous cavity. You remember, pericardium has two layers, fibrous pericardium and serous. And serous pericardium divided into parietal and into the visceral layer. So remember, please, inside of the fibrous cavity, we have one more serous cavity, which is called epicardial cavity. But now I want to speak not about it. I want to attract your attention into intercostal space. That is the space which is formed by all layers of thorax, which I mentioned for you before. Don't write anything, just look to me. How it forms. Well, let's open the picture to be understandable for you. Anyway, here I show for you some anomalies, for example, polytelia. Yeah, the more areolus of so amastia, no any breast for the female. This is genetical problem, congenital problem, look in the, when in home you look to study, to track your attention. Okay, here it is greatly visible. You can see posterior wall of the thoracic cage, internal intercostal muscles. You can see the membranes. By the way, your intercostal muscles forms two membranes, as you remember, anterior and posterior intercostal membranes. For example, here it is greatly visible. This is the external intercostal muscle, which is called anterior intercostal membrane. You remember, approximately from the level of middle clavicular line up to the lateral margin of the sternum. And this is internal intercostal muscle, which is called posterior intercostal membrane. Yeah? From the level of the angle of the ribs up to the postovertebral joints. Yeah? That is located in the posterior wall. But I want to show for you this picture, because here is greatly visible not only formation of intercostal space, but also content. You can see neurovascular bundle, NAV from down to upwards, nervus intercostalis, arteries, I mean double in posterior wall is posterior in anterior wall, anterior, posterior originated from aorta, anterior from thoracic interne, near the middle axillary line, they make huge anastomosis. And finally nerve, which is the spinal nerves, yeah, from segment T1 up to segment T2. But what about the borders of space? It's more than simple. Upwards, lower margin of upper rib, down, upper margin of the lower rib, in front, external intercostal, behind it. Loose connective tissue and neurovascular bundle between them. External intercostal, you remember, it is inspirational muscle originated outside of the costal groove from upper margin of the, or lower margin of upper located, and inserted to the upper margin of the lower located. Fibers pass from up to down, laterally to medial. That's it. Then it is constricted, the ribs is lifted to upwards. Internal vice versa, originated from upper margin of lower, inserted to lower margin of upper, but now inside of the groove of the rib. Yeah? Then it's constricted, rib is descending. It means it is expiration muscle. By the way, transverse thoracic muscle also is expiration. As you remember, it starts from the sternum, level of the xiphoid process of inferior parts of the body, and then in muscular fibers ascended to the ribs, usually four inferior, and then it is constricted, ribs also descending to down. Intercostal neurovascular bundle, guys, much more better protected in the back wall. For example, knife traumas usually don't damage it because it's inside of the groove. Starting from the level of middle axillary line, it is descending to down, and it located in midpoint of distance between upper and lower ribs, and can be simply damaged. By the way, traumatization of artery and traumatization of the vein is critically dangerous. Vein due to the negative pressure, and possibility of formation of the air embolism. By the way, it is fused with the periosteum, and the constriction is standing possible. Likewise for artery. Artery due to the profuse bleeding, especially posterior one, which is originated from aorta. You understand, contains huge pressure, and more of this, it's fusing with the periosteum, make the vasoconstriction possible. That is also the cause of very profuse bleeding. Of course, guys, thank you very much, baby. I will not start to discuss the cavity, because after 4 or 5 minutes, my lecture will be finished. Don't worry, no any problem during the practical class. Not this practical class, because this we will use for your midterm examination, yeah? But in next practical class, we will do it. In next week, generally, I plan to finish the thorax region. So you see, during one class, I give you all topographical questions. During the last class, next class, I will give you the operations. And then we will become to the biggest reading part, yeah, of our semester. It is upper extremity. Upper extremity is really hard, it's really big. During this week, I will share for you, for head of the groups, topics for your individual works in weekends. I will have the time to do it. And you will have more than enough time up to the finish of semester to make your second individual work. I didn't check your individual works. I want to say absolutely honestly, because